Stand down, now!
That your bet, isn't it? I call.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full X-Men 97 Season 2, Episode 8 video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the comics, and WTF moments, so we will break it all down. Everybody ready for Apocalypse's Horseman of Death Gambit to make a name for himself this week. And no coincidence that we'll be seeing Channing Tatum's Gambit come back in Avengers Doomsday, so there's a lot of Gambit stuff happening this year. Gambit fans eating good. Love having Gambit back on the show. Horseman of Death Gambit was awesome in this episode. My only minor complaint is that the show does what it's always done in the original animated series, is that it speed runs this plot so fast. They totally should have brought him back a couple episodes ago so that we could have had a couple more episodes of him as Horseman of Death Gambit before this big twist where they are able to save him, and they make you wonder, because then the finale is going to wind up being X-Force and X-Factor versus X-Men. X-Men Civil War. It's very Captain America Civil War coded in this finale. They did this most of the time in the original animated series for the classic arcs from the comics, where they would just give them a couple episodes at best, with a few exceptions like the Phoenix arc got a bunch more episodes than normal because it was so big of a comic book arc. So Marvel, please, we implore you, give them more episodes so they don't have to speedrun stuff so much. But the episode title was The Dead Man's Hand, all kinds of references to many things involving Gambit because of the playing cards metaphors. Gambit becoming Apocalypse's Horseman of Death like he was in the comics, his playing cards during his transformation to the tarot cards, and Nightcrawler's hand in their poker game at the beginning of the episode. During poker, the dead man's hand means a two-pair poker hand consisting of black aces and black eights. The pair of aces and eights, along with an unknown kicker, were reportedly held by an Old West folk hero, lawman, and gunfighter, Wild Bill Hickok, when he was murdered while playing a game, and that's how the term was coined, the dead man's hand, because it was his hand when he died. They give Rogue the previously on this time because it's a big Gambit and Rogue episode. During the intro, they make a couple changes. There's a couple scenes from the original animated series. There's a scene of Rogue and Gambit from previous episodes, and another scene of Apocalypse fighting Archangel and the rest of the X-Men from the original series, because that's basically what we're heading into in the finale. Apocalypse is back confirmed. Nobody on this planet, even if you don't read X-Men comics, thought that Apocalypse was dead. They're not going to kill him off screen. That's not how someone that big goes. Especially not before the finale. They added the X-Force training scene back into the episode, and interestingly, I thought this whole season, they've left Gambit in that lineup when they're running at each other at the Brotherhood of Mutants, despite the fact that he was dead for a lot of the season. Maybe they just didn't want to spend the money to take him out of that part of the intro. I think this is also one of the reasons why X-Men 97 is getting so many seasons, because it's way cheaper for Marvel to make the show than the live-action Disney Plus shows that they've been doing, that all have been getting canceled slowly. They literally just announced that they were canceling Wonder Man Season 2 right after they announced that they'd renewed it and the writer's room was about to start. But the episode starts with another flashback to Genosha before the Sentinels attacked. Rogue is having a dream of Genosha with Gambit. She remembers from that episode that night dancing with him at the celebration, but because the dance floor's empty, you realize that it is a dream. Which then turns on a dime to a nightmare when she realizes this Horseman of Death Gambit saying his line, "Remember it," which was the line he went out on when he sacrificed himself, and gives her another ominous quote saying that some things run deeper than skin, talking about their relationship, which was something that he told her earlier in the season when he was still alive. He then repeats that to her later when they meet each other in real life.
Some things, they be deeper than skin.
He then uses his power to start transforming her into one of his acolytes, like we see later in the episode, foreshadowing his return and what he's doing to the other characters when he transforms them, and how he gives her the jewel, part of Apocalypse's power, transforming her later in the episode. We see the X-Men on Genosha playing poker together, and it feels Star Trek Next Generation coded, like they played poker a lot during that series. But because of Gambit this episode, the playing card metaphors, all of his metaphors, this is obviously foreshadowing him coming back. Jean Grey using her powers to gain an advantage, although she makes it sound like Scott is just really bad at playing poker and she didn't need to use her powers. We also just saw Sadie Sink debut in Spider-Man Brand New Day as the new MCU Jean Grey that is going to be the future X-Men movies going forward in Marvel Phase 7. That X-Men movie is not going to happen until 2028, but around the time that movie happens, we'll also probably be watching Season 4, which they said that they're starting to write right now. So we'll see if there's a lot of synergy going on between the two of them. Even though the animated series typically does its own thing, it's been in a completely different universe, so there aren't a lot of like traditional MCU references. All that new live-action X-Men stuff that they started talking about the past couple weeks is a whole separate thing, so I'll do separate videos about that. We might actually meet who some of those actors are going to be playing the new recast versions of the core X-Men characters at D23, but they might wait till the end of the year because there's all this doomsday stuff happening now. Just remember that in the back of your mind while you're watching these last couple of X-Men 97 episodes. A lot of X-Men stuff happening this year. Nightcrawler pulls the dead man's hand, which is both meant to reference Gambit's return and Gambit turning him into one of his acolytes in the future. Beast's response also foreshadows Gambit's return too. His hand is much livelier because Gambit is alive again. When X-Force shows up, they use this sequence to show you their new defenses on Genosha, also to foreshadow the events of the finale when X-Force and X-Factor are going to come after the X-Men. They're going to be using those defenses again real soon. The presence drawn to Cyclops and Jean Grey, of course, is Cable because he is their son, kind of. Jean Grey isn't his mother, it's Madeline Pryor. They've made this reference in previous episodes. You're not my mother, Madeline Pryor was. She's dead. But he thinks of her as sort of a stepmom kind of person, so very motherly kind of feeling. Later in the episode, he also proves that he does care about her, even though he will do anything to kill Apocalypse, even kill Gambit, and kill some of the X-Men on the way to killing Gambit if he needs to. They roll in Apocalypse's desiccated-looking body because obviously he's jumped into Gambit's mind. We knew that he wasn't going to be dead at the end of last week's episode, but we just weren't sure exactly what happened to his mind, only that it would have something to do with Gambit. Jubilee shows Rogue Gambit's playing card that he died with that Apocalypse took from his body, so they start the episode pretty quickly learning exactly what happened, like, oh, Gambit was the person that he resurrected as his Horseman of Death, but something has happened to his mind, because everybody remembers what happened to Archangel when Apocalypse turned him into his Horseman of Death. But they believe that Apocalypse was killed by Gambit, even though it sounds like Apocalypse just played Gambit like a fool and was able to enter his mind without Gambit realizing it when he was transformed into the Horseman of Death. Like, it sounds like those things happened at the same time. Like, the minute the Gambit started to come back into consciousness and he attacked Apocalypse, Apocalypse also jumped into his mind. Also setting up the real battle being Rogue using her love for him to save him. She literally psychically jumps into his mind, and it's her love for him that saves him from Apocalypse. Maybe the real Horseman of Death was all the friends we made along the way. They want Professor X to use Cerebra to suss Gambit out to see what's what, and maybe kill him if need be using the power of Cerebra, but later we find out that Gambit's upgraded powers are almost too powerful for Professor X. There were a couple moments where it seemed like Professor X was about to go Omega level on Gambit, like just use power that you've never seen him use before, but they stop him short when Apocalypse returns, so you're kind of left wondering, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Maybe they'll save this for some sort of Onslaught twist later in the future.
I would have thought, after your beloved Magnus, you might have finally understood.
For all you Onslaught truthers out there are tens of us out there. There were a couple Onslaught references when Apocalypse full-on returns inside Gambit's mind later in the episode, so I do feel like the show is telling us that they will do Onslaught at some point. A lot of the concepts with Apocalypse hiding out in Gambit's mind are involved with the creation of the Onslaught character too. So there's also a lot of other future storyline that they're setting up in this episode beyond the Apocalypse stuff. They use the previous example of being able to redeem Archangel, saving him from Apocalypse's control, saying that they can do it with Gambit now. If Rogue did it one time, she can do it again. And to boot, Gambit was in love with her, she was in love with him, so their relationship was so much stronger. It should be much easier for her to do it this time, which it kind of is, even though she has to play along with him for a little while to do it. So really the episode is all about saving Gambit. He is like the big damsel in distress, despite being one of the most powerful characters in the episode, which I thought was kind of funny. It's kind of like Vision during Avengers Infinity War. He is the damsel in distress that all the Avengers are trying to save from Thanos, unsuccessfully. They set up the idea that Cable is really trigger happy and really wants to kill Gambit because he winds up double-crossing them later in the episode too and reveals that was his plan all along. No matter what, he was going to try and kill Gambit because it was his opportunity to kill Apocalypse, and revealing also that Cable knew Apocalypse had jumped into Gambit's mind. He never thought that Apocalypse was permanent, even though he plays it that way to the other characters, so the other characters aren't thinking about Apocalypse. They introduced the upgraded Cerebra from the comics and Professor X's new helmet that he wears during that. This is all from the Grant Morrison run that their costumes in the X-Corp are based from too. Like, this is all basically their era in the comics that they're adapting right now for these stories. He finds Gambit in New Orleans, who's able to use his Horseman of Death powers to blast him out of his mind in the area, just showing you how powerful he is. There are a couple other moments like that in the episode just to show you how powerful Gambit has become. Gambit then goes home to his X-Ternal's team from those original 2 episodes of the animated series, telling you about his backstory before he joined the X-Men and before he met Rogue. It's the same church, same base that they worked out of the original animated series. They still have the X-Ternal stained glass window in there like they did before, reminding you that she was with Kang in Apocalypse in ancient Egypt, setting up that whole backstory too. They also confirmed some of my theories about who she is in the comics. But she was also a big part of that original animated series and Gambit's origin as the patron goddess of their X-Ternals team, so they also pay a lot of that off from the previous episodes too. They bring back all of Gambit's original X-Ternals team from those 2 episodes, and they then learn that Gambit sent them all the invitations as he uses his Horseman of Death powers to turn them into acolytes. You also notice when he starts speaking that his voice has this extra reverb on it to show you his new cosmic powers. My assumption is that when he turns them into acolytes, it also gives them slightly upgraded powers too, like they're a little bit stronger than they were before. Cyclops and Jean Grey talk with Cable. They point out that adult Cable never told them that they were going to meet him as a boy eventually, but he didn't want to break the timeline even worse than it already was, and said that there was no point in it because they'd see him eventually, and probably telling them would cause more timeline problems. There's also a moment here where he kind of lies to them about Apocalypse dying when he knew that Apocalypse did not die, like he knew he was going to have to kill Gambit and his mind was going to be in Gambit's body. This is just to throw everybody off so that nobody is expecting him to turn on them to kill Gambit at the end of the episode when he gets the chance. They get attacked mid-air by Gambit's new acolytes. I think this is the 4th or the 5th time on the show that they've had a version of this. They absolutely love blowing up ships when they're all inside of them having battles mid-air. Jean Grey senses blackness where the souls would normally be when Gambit takes over their body, like negative space, just feeling what it's like to be the Horseman of Death. Rogue finally gets to talk to him, and he says the only thing he saw when he died was her, and when she touches him, the big reveal is that her powers don't work on him anymore, which is what he wants. He feels like this is the key to them being together forever. That was a big point of contention with them when he was still alive previously on the series, is that she didn't want to get married to him or like have a more serious relationship than they already did have because she was so worried about killing him because of her powers, but now they don't have to worry about that anymore. So in Gambit's mind, the perfect life would be making her immortal so they can live together forever, and it's very Bride of Frankenstein kind of vibes. Like he is Frankenstein, he wants his bride now, that they can live together forever.
It'll bind us together forever, husband and wife.
The end of the episode when he puts her in the wedding dress and gives her the jewel also feels like a very goth type of wedding. He repeats his line from The Nightmare, "Some things are deeper than skin," which he said to her when he was still alive. She remembered it during the nightmare, so it's not like he was actually inside her mind earlier. He was remembering when he told it to her when he was still alive, but in her nightmare, she was just remembering it also from that previous time that he said it when he was still alive. Horseman Gambit has a lot of crazy powers. Telepathy is not one of them. He uses his power to knock her out, and then we find out that his tarot cards are heat-seeking when he takes out Nightcrawler, who becomes his next acolyte too. One of the other cool details during this part of the episode were the space bikes they were flying around on that Gambit had transformed with his Horseman of Death powers. They were a little bit like the bikes that Ghost Rider uses. You can make the Lobo reference too because they're flying space bikes. But because it's Marvel, we'll make the Ghost Rider reference because Ghost Rider just uses his power to turn whatever he wants to into whatever vehicle that he needs at any given moment. Speaking of which, we also literally just met the brand new Ghost Rider of the MCU in Ryan Gosling. We're going to see that movie in 2028 too. The same year, we're meeting the new recast X-Men characters in the X-Men 2028 movie. Jean Grey and Cable team up to use their telekinesis to land the plane. Cable would also be way more powerful, but he's constantly having to use a portion of his power to keep the techno-organic virus at bay. If he stopped doing that, it would immediately completely consume his body. So it's kind of like Cable is walking around with one hand tied behind his back all the time in terms of his power levels. Morph has a joke about putting the Exorcist movie on for the younger Generation X mutants. That movie is also a metaphor for this episode because they tried to exorcise the demon out of Gambit, so to speak, but the demon in this case is Apocalypse. Gambit is possessed by Apocalypse. Now they have to figure out what to do with the demon inside of him. The rest of the X-Men go to Genosha to help out so that we can have that big team-up scene. Very, very cool scene. And Gambit has a very messed up romantic dinner in his former family home. That's meant to be his adoptive father in the picture on the wall. He makes all kinds of playing card puns because this is Gambit. I mean, he can't talk without making a playing card pun. They make it seem like he wants to restart their relationship now that he can't touch her without being hurt, and tries to sell her on the idea of getting married. He actually proposes to her, which is why I say the ceremony that they perform with the jewel at the end of the episode is also meant to be sort of like a wedding for the two of them. A very goth wedding. He then tells the rest of Apocalypse's backstory, confirming my big theory that he falls in love with X-Ternal in the past and they turn her into a version of Genesis from the newer comics, so she convinces him to grant him a portion of his power, which is why she was able to live to present day in the jewel, and Gambit wants to use that jewel to make Rogue immortal so they can live together forever. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's bride. But the other idea is that in the past, Apocalypse was making the X-Ternal character his first Horseman. Genesis was also his first Horseman in the comics too. Now their relationship was different in the comics, so the TV show is doing something different with the character. It's combining the X-Ternal character with Genesis from the comics. The TV show version was tricking him and wanted to get revenge for the death of her people in Egypt when he came to power and destroyed the city. For the most part, it seemed like Rogue was just going along with Gambit and wanted to be with him so badly that she was willing to do it in this way, but she was agreeing with him until the X-Men showed up to stop what was happening, even though she does take the power of the jewel anyway. So had the rest of the X-Men not shown up, Rogue probably would have just gone along with this. Their whole ceremony is also meant to be a reference back to those original animated 2 episodes they did with the X-Ternal character. Like, it all plays out relatively similarly, where they play the summoning ritual and she comes back out of hibernation. Also meant to be a comp to Apocalypse having to hibernate and regenerate for several years at a time because he's lived for so long. You have to remember that she got this power from Apocalypse, so her powers work just like Apocalypse's powers. And I love the way they played this scene where he just kills her quickly so that show you how powerful he is. She seemingly vaporizes on the spot. We'll see if she ever comes back, but I think she's meant to be permadead. The X-Men then show up to try and stop things, and they have a battle royale with all the X-Men and X-Force, Gambit also making more playing card puns. You also notice during this fight scene, Nightcrawler's teleports are now a different color that he's been consumed with Gambit's power. During their big fight, Morph turns into Earthquake, giving us another cameo scene in the episode. And I love the touch that Gambit, because he's turned into Death now, his staff turns into a scythe. Gambit then forces the jewel on her, which gives her the power to enter his mind psychically and save him, but she also has the power after the episode, so going to the finale, we'll see what ramifications there are, because she's still in this upgraded state, and it might have something to do with taking Apocalypse down in the finale, but we'll see if they permakill him, because it would feel kind of early to permakill Apocalypse. Literally every time he shows up on the show, he says, "I can never be killed, I survive everything." He says that to Professor X in this episode too. "You should have learned from Magneto, I always survive." Somehow Apocalypse returned, which is even funnier when you remember that Oscar Isaac, who the meme came from in the first place from Star Wars, also played live-action Apocalypse. So even if they do kill Apocalypse in the finale, I would not be surprised if during Season 5, somewhere Apocalypse shows up in the background. Anytime you start messing with time travel, which is what Cable and Apocalypse are doing, anything is possible, like all the rules go out the window. Professor X then tries to stop him with his telepathy, and they have a knockdown, drag-out fight in Gambit's mind. It almost still gets stopped. I think Professor X was still about to beat him until Apocalypse manifested himself, so he's a little bit more powerful than Horseman of Death Gambit in his mind, but they really wanted to make it seem like he actually had to work for it. He makes all kinds of references to the original animated series Phoenix arc when Jean Grey used her powers of the Phoenix Force to bind the M'Kraan crystal, claiming that he's about to do that with Gambit in his mind. Like, this is the measure of last resort, we're going to bind you in this place so that psychically you're basically just in a coma for the rest of your life and you can't hurt anybody. Quickly hears the original Gambit inside Horseman Gambit's mind and helps him to escape, but can't do it because Apocalypse returns. While this is going on inside his mind, Cable and X-Force, or some of X-Force, betray the X-Men. Cable's plan revealed to always kill Horseman Gambit because he knew that a piece of Apocalypse's mind was in Gambit's body and killing Gambit would permakill Apocalypse, so he knew heading into this that he was going to have to kill Gambit no matter what. Here's where we get to the next big Onslaught reference, foreshadowing. Apocalypse starts explaining how he survived inside Gambit's mind, referencing Magneto and his death. And I think they want to play on the idea that Onslaught in the comics is a combination of the psychic energies of Magneto and Professor X. So it's like 2 minds combined into one, and that's kind of what's happening inside Gambit's mind now. The mind of Apocalypse and the mind of Gambit fighting over the body. Now just imagine it's Professor X and Magneto's psychic energies combined. Boom, you have Onslaught, a really big, really powerful X-Men villain. Maybe something for next season because we have the finale heading up. Maybe that'll be like a post-credit scene or like some teaser in the finale because there have been several references like this in previous episodes where he keeps talking about Magneto, putting the helmet to his head, putting Magneto's helmet to his head, which just feels like more Onslaught talk. Apocalypse is about to consume the psychic energies, the minds of both Professor X and Gambit and take over Gambit's body until Rogue, using her upgraded jewel powers, enters the mind and saves Gambit from inside Apocalypse. So even though they're visualizing this in a really weird, trippy way, this is all inside Gambit's mind, and what's happening here is Gambit is reasserting control over his body, but it's like the regular Gambit, not Horseman Gambit anymore, that's been twisted by Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is still in there, he's just dormant inside his mind, like he's been subdued inside Gambit's mind. But he's only trapped temporarily, and he's finding a way to reassert control over Gambit's body, so if he is able to do that, then it'll be Apocalypse in Gambit's body. Now you also kind of wonder if that means that he would have Apocalypse's powers, or would he just have Gambit's powers as the Horseman of Death? Cable, to his credit, as trigger-happy as he is, holds back from killing Gambit to avoid killing Jean Grey, proving that he's not a total monster. On the medical readout, when they get back, it says XM266. It's a reference to X-Men 266, which was the first appearance of Gambit in the comics. I don't know if Kevin Feige has confirmed whether or not there's going to be a Gambit on the new X-Men team when they debut in 2028. We'll see, because they're doing so much with Channing Tatum's Gambit right now. They then try to figure out what to do with Apocalypse's mind before he completely takes over Gambit's body, and at the end of the episode, our big stinger scene, Cable, Psylocke, and Archangel are joined by X-Factor, who want to team up with them to kill Gambit to eliminate the threat of Apocalypse forever, potentially, setting up the finale to be X-Men versus X-Force and X-Factor, with Gambit being the damsel in distress, like I said, X-Men Civil War, like Captain America Civil War. Bringing this back around, because this is a big Apocalypse arc, don't you also feel like this is more foreshadowing for Valerie Cooper possibly being a version of Mystique, because Mystique was so tied to Apocalypse in those original animated series episodes, but we have seen so much Apocalypse this season, but no Mystique. What if we've been watching Mystique this whole time without realizing that it is Mystique? It would be very appropriate for them to have their big final battle against Apocalypse in the finale, and then Valerie Cooper all of a sudden, boom, turns into Mystique again, reveals herself. But in the same way the Season 1 finale foreshadowed a lot of moments for Season 2, I expect the same to happen in the Season 2 finale. They'll foreshadow a lot of the big storylines that they'll start off with in Season 3. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and let me know if you spotted any Easter eggs or references to the X-Men comics in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video. My full Episode 9 finale video will post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Big reminder that it is the last episode of the season, but they're already in the middle of working on editing for Season 3, and they're starting to write Season 4 right now too. And it kind of sounds like they do plan on doing Season 5 as well too, so like the show will just continue indefinitely, at least for 5 seasons. So we will also be watching new X-Men episodes of animation in addition to the new live-action MCU X-Men movies that they're going to be doing starting in 2028. It is going to be a real good time for X-Men fans the next couple of years. We will be eating good. Everybody click here for that finale video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Spider-Man Brand New Day videos from this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.